Hi, everybody. I'm back. I am Scott Ferguson. I'm going to read to you today. This is installment number 3 of 3 from the autobiography of Mohandas Gandhi. I'm going to read what is the 47th chapter of the book. We've already talked about how these chapters stand alone very well. This is actually chapter 22 of part 2. Gandhi has been in South Africa, back to India. He was practicing law. He is had begun already to advocate for a free India. This chapter is called Comparative Study of Religions. I chose this chapter because, like so many others in this book, it reads like an essay. And while the details are very interesting, overall, I think the most important point, at least to me, is that Gandhi was not a Hindu, he was not a Buddhist, or a Jew, or a Christian, or Muslim. He was a seeker of truth, and he ultimately defined, in his own words, truth as God, and God as truth. However, he certainly had and displayed respect for all of those faiths that I mentioned and more. And so that's what really stands out to me in this chapter. So let's get into it. Chapter 22 of Part 2, Comparative Study of Religions. Let me get my uniform on. Now I am ready. I hope that you relax and enjoy. If I found myself entirely absorbed in the service of the community, the reason behind it was my desire for self-realization. I had made the religion of service my own, as I felt that God could be realized only through service. And service for me was the service of India, because it came to me without my seeking, because I had an aptitude for it. I had gone to South Africa for travel, for finding an escape from Kathiawad intrigues, and for gaining my own livelihood. But as I have said, I found myself in search of God and striving for self-realization. Christian friends had whetted my appetite for knowledge, which had become almost insatiable, and they would not leave me in peace, even if I desired to be indifferent. In Durban, Mr. Spencer Walton, the head of the South Africa General Mission, found me out. I became almost a member of his family. At the back of this acquaintance was, of course, my contact with Christians in Pretoria. Mr. Walton had a manner all his own. I do not recollect his ever having invited me to embrace Christianity, but he placed his life as an open book before me and let me watch all his movements. Mrs. Walton was a very gentle and talented woman. I liked the attitude of this couple. We knew the fundamental differences between us. Any amount of discussion could not efface them. Yet even differences prove helpful where there are tolerance, charity, and truth. I liked Mr. and Mrs. Walton's humility, perseverance, and devotion to work, and we met very frequently. This friendship kept alive my interest in religion. It was impossible now to get the leisure that I used to have in Pretoria for my religious studies. But what little time I could spare, I turned to good account. My religious correspondence continued. Ray Shand Bai, that was a close friend of his, was guiding me. Some friend sent me Narmanda Shankar's book, Dharma Vishar. Its preface proved very helpful. I had heard about the bohemian way in which the poet had lived, and a description in the preface of the revolution effected in his life by his religious studies captivated me. I came to like the book and read it from cover to cover with attention. I read with interest Max Muller's book, India, What Can It Teach Us? And the translation of the Upanishads published by the Theosophical Society. All this enhanced my regard for Hinduism, and its beauties began to grow upon me. It did not, however, prejudice me against other religions. I read Washington Irving's Life of Mahomet and his successors, and Carlyle's Panegyric on the Prophet. These books raised Muhammad in my estimation. I also read a book called The Sayings of Zarathustra. Thus I gained more knowledge of the different religions. The study stimulated my self-introspection and fostered in me the habit of putting into practice whatever appealed to me in my studies. Thus I began some of the yogic practices, as well as I could understand them from a reading of the Hindu books. But I could not get on very far, and decided to follow them with the help of some expert when I returned to India. The desire has never been fulfilled. I made, too, an intensive study of Tolstoy's books, The Gospels in Brief, What to Do, and other books made a deep impression on me. I began to realize more and more the infinite possibilities of universal love. About the same time, I came in contact with another Christian family. At their suggestion, I attended the Wesleyan Church every Sunday. For these days, I also had their standing invitation to dinner. The church did not make a favorable impression on me. The sermons seemed to be uninspiring. The congregation did not strike me as being particularly religious. They were not an assembly of devout souls. They appeared rather to be worldly-minded people, going to church for recreation and in conformity to custom. Here, at times, I would involuntarily doze. I was ashamed, but some of my neighbors who were in no better case lightened the shame. I could not go on long like this, and soon gave up attending the service. My connection with the family I used to visit every Sunday was abruptly broken. In fact, it may be said that I was warned to visit it no more. It happened thus. My hostess was a good and simple woman, but somewhat narrow-minded. We always discussed religious subjects. I was then rereading Arnold's Light of Asia. Once we began to compare the life of Jesus with that of Buddha. Look at Gautama's compassion, said I. It was not confined to mankind. It was extended to all living beings. Does not one's heart overflow with love to think of the lamb joyously perched on his shoulders? One fails to notice this love for all living beings in the life of Jesus. The comparison pained the good lady. I could understand her feelings. I cut the matter short, and we went to the dining room. Her son, a cherub aged scarcely 5, was also with us. I am happiest when in the midst of children, and this youngster and I had long been friends. I spoke derisively of the piece of meat on his plate and in high praise of the apple on mine. The innocent boy was carried away and joined in my praise of the fruit. But the mother, she was dismayed. I was warned. I checked myself and changed the subject. The following week I visited the family as usual, but not without trepidation. I did not see that I should stop going there. I did not think it proper either, but the good lady made my way easy. Mr. Gandhi, she said, please don't take it ill if I feel obliged to tell you that my boy is none the better for your company. Every day he hesitates to eat meat and asks for fruit, reminding me of your argument. This is too much. If he gives up meat, he is bound to get weak, if not ill. How could I bear it? Your discussions should henceforth be only with us elders. They are sure to react badly on children. Mrs., I replied, I am sorry. I can understand your feelings as a parent, for I too have children. We can very easily end this unpleasant state of things. What I eat and omit to eat is bound to have a greater effect on the child than what I say. The best way, therefore, is for me to stop these visits. That certainly need not affect our friendship. I thank you, she said, with evident relief. That concludes the chapter. And I just really appreciated that particular chapter. And if you don't mind, I'm going to repeat a sentence after he was talking about all of the different materials that he was reading and all the religions he was learning about. And he said, I began to realize more and more the infinite possibilities of universal love. I certainly also appreciate his mentions and I think sincere feelings about tolerance, especially in this time of November 2024. So that is the third of 3 excerpts from this beautiful book, Gandhi, an autobiography, the story of my experiments with truth. I strongly encourage you to read it. It's the kind of book that you could really have with you for months or even years if you wish, and just take in the chapters one by one. But in the meantime, I thank you very, very much for watching and for listening.